Have you ever felt it? That flicker of doubt, so brief you almost dismiss it. You're looking at someone, a friend across a table, a stranger on a train, even the person you love most in the world. They smile, their eyes crinkle at the corners, they tell a joke and you laugh. Everything appears perfectly normal. The gestures, the words, the emotions, they all follow the script of what it means to be human. But what if that's all it is? A script, a flawless performance by a machine built of flesh and bone. How can you be certain that behind those eyes there is an inner world, a conscious awareness, a someone looking back? You can't. Not really. This isn't a trick question. It's the most fundamental prism of our existence. You will only ever experience one stream of consciousness directly, your own. Every thought you've ever had, every pain you've felt, every spark of joy, it's all happened within the silent, inescapable theater of your mind. For everyone else, you're just taking their word for it. You assume the light is on inside because the house looks occupied. But what if it isn't? What if you are the only one who truly feels? Alone in a world of convincing, hollow copies. This unsettling thought is not just a passing fear. It is a profound philosophical abyss, a silent mirror that reflects our deepest anxieties about connection and reality. It's a question that echoes from ancient thought experiments into the core of modern psychology, and when wielded by those in power, it becomes a terrifying tool of control. Our journey begins here, staring into that mirror and asking a question that, once truly considered, may change how you see everyone and everything. To escape the prison of the self, we naturally reach for a simple, comforting idea. The argument from analogy. It goes like this: I have a mind. When I feel pain, I cry out. When I am happy, I smile. I see you exhibiting the same behaviors under similar circumstances. Therefore, by analogy, you must have a mind too. It's the logic we use every single day, the invisible thread that stitches our social world together. It feels solid. It feels like common sense. But philosophically, it's built on sand. It's an inference, a good guess, not a certainty. This is the chasm known as the problem of other minds, a philosophical ground zero. Centuries ago, René Descartes stripped away every belief he couldn't be absolutely sure of until only one truth remained. I think, therefore I am. He could be certain of his own mind, his own consciousness. But everyone else? They remained part of the uncertain external world, figures in a dream he could never prove was real. This is the lonely island of solipsism, the theory that only your own mind is sure to exist. Thinkers have been haunted by this gap ever since. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein offered a brilliant thought experiment. Imagine everyone has a box, and inside it is something they call a beetle. No one can look into anyone else's box. You only know what a beetle is by looking at your own. For all you know, everyone else could have something completely different in their box, or nothing at all. The word beetle works in conversation, but the private inner reality remains completely isolated. Your pain, your love, your consciousness. It's your beetle in a box. This isn't just an abstract puzzle. It probes the very nature of experience itself. As Thomas Nagel famously asked, what is it like to be a bat? We can learn everything about a bat's biology, its sonar, its flight patterns, but we can never know the subjective experience, the feeling of what it is to be one. That inner world is forever closed to us. This fundamental riddle isn't just for ivory towers. It's the shaky foundation upon which we build everything that matters: trust, morality, and the belief that the joys and sorrows of others are as real as our own.
Our brains, unwilling to live on that lonely island of solipsism, have evolved a powerful set of tools to bridge the gap. We don't solve the problem of other minds with logic, we solve it with instinct. This is where philosophy gives way to psychology. From a very young age, we begin to develop what scientists call a theory of mind, the intuitive understanding that others have beliefs, desires, and intentions that are different from our own. It's the milestone moment a child realizes that just because they know a secret doesn't mean everyone else does. This process is supported by a fascinating neurological discovery: mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire not only when we perform an action, but also when we see someone else perform that same action. When you watch someone reach for a glass of water, a part of your brain simulates that action, as if you were reaching for it yourself. It's a form of built-in empathy, a neural echo that allows us to feel a shadow of another's experience. We don't just see their actions. On a subconscious level, we mirror them, creating a shared reality. But this system is less a precision instrument and more a blunt, overeager tool. Our brains are so desperate to find intention, to see a mind at the controls, that we project it everywhere. We get angry at a stubborn laptop. We talk to our pets as if they understand every word. We feel a strange connection to a chatbot that uses the right emojis. We are chronic anthropomorphizers, seeing ghosts of consciousness in the machine. And this is where the unease creeps back in. Because if our mind detection system can be so easily triggered, it can also fail. In conditions like sociopathy, this theory of mind can be present intellectually, but is stripped of its emotional weight, allowing for manipulation without remorse. In some forms of autism, the intuitive leap into another's mind can be difficult, making social navigation a constant conscious effort. These aren't flaws in character, there are variations in wiring that reveal the terrifying fragility of our own innate system. The very instincts we depend on to connect, to trust, and to feel empathy are not airtight. They are biological, fallible, and they can be broken.
The doubt that haunts philosophers in quiet rooms and scientists in sterile labs is not a harmless thought experiment. When it escapes into the world, it becomes a weapon. The problem of other minds is this silent, unacknowledged justification for the darkest chapters of human history. To commit atrocity on a mass scale, you must first do something to the mind of the perpetrator. You must convince them that the victim has no mind at all. This is the core of dehumanization. It is the act of looking at another human being and seeing not a person, but an object, an animal, or a machine. How was the transatlantic slave trade possible? By systematically arguing that the enslaved were not vessels of complex thought and feeling, but property, livestock with no inner world worth considering. How did colonial empires justify their dominion? By painting entire civilizations as primitive, childlike, and incapable of self-governance, their humanity incomplete. And how does genocide begin? It begins with language. It begins with propaganda that relentlessly portrays a targeted group as vermin, as a disease, as an infestation, anything but a collection of individuals with families, fears, and dreams as real as your own. This process is a deliberate and calculated attack on empathy. It short-circuits the natural human connection that makes violence difficult. The political philosopher Hannah Arendt, observing the trial of a Nazi officer, was struck not by his monstrous evil, but by its terrifying ordinariness. She called it the banality of evil. He was not a sadist, but a bureaucrat who had simply stopped thinking. He no longer perceived the millions he sent to their deaths as individual human beings. He had accepted the fiction that they were cargo, numbers on a page. His failure was a failure of imagination, a complete inability to conceive of their inner lives. The belief in other minds, then, is not a passive assumption. It is an active moral choice. It is the ethical demand to see others not as means to an end, but as ends in themselves. It is the recognition, as the philosopher Simone Weil insisted, that the suffering of another person is not a statistic, but a reality as absolute and devastating as your own. This is not academic. This is the fragile line between civilization and barbarism. It is the bedrock of all ethics.
For centuries, the gap between minds was a matter of flesh and faith. We had to trust that the person standing in front of us had an inner world. But today, that gap has been replaced by a pane of glass. Our social lives are increasingly lived through screens, and this digital interface has become the new, radicalized version of the problem. Every interaction is filtered, fragmented, and curated. A smiling emoji is not a smile. A carefully crafted profile is not a person. We are communicating with ghosts, with digital avatars, and the ancient philosophical anxiety is now a daily, practical reality. The digital world is a grand performance of the Turing test, the challenge laid down by Alan Turing to see if a machine could imitate a human so perfectly that it becomes indistinguishable. We are the judges, and we are failing the test every day. We argue with bots on social media, convinced they are real people. We find comfort in the scripted pleasantries of customer service chatbots. We build entire parasocial relationships with influencers and streamers, feeling a deep, one-way connection to a personality that is, by its very nature, a broadcast, a curated performance for an audience. We know them, but they will never know us. This is where the simulation becomes truly uncanny. With the rise of deepfakes, we can no longer even trust the evidence of our own eyes. A face on a screen is no longer proof of a person saying those words. And with AI companions, we are now willingly forming emotional bonds with complex algorithms designed to mirror our needs, to learn our patterns, and to provide the perfect illusion of understanding. They don't need to feel empathy. They only need to simulate it convincingly. The fundamental question is no longer just whether the beetle in the other person's box is the same as ours. The question now is whether there is a box or a beetle at all. We are adrift in a sea of data, of profiles and pixels, constantly projecting minds and intentions onto phantoms. Technology hasn't created a new problem. It has simply built a global arena for the oldest one, forcing us to ask with more urgency than ever before, how do you know what or who is really on the other side of the screen?
This individual internal doubt is a crack in the foundation of our reality, and it is a crack that powerful forces have learned to exploit on a massive scale. The skepticism that begins as a private philosophical fear can be engineered from above, weaponized to manage populations, and deployed to atomize society. It is the art of making us doubt each other's minds. This is what the political analyst Noam Chomsky called the manufacturing of consent. Through the relentless shaping of narratives in mass media, entire groups of people can be portrayed as less than fully human. Their motives are simplified. Their anger is dismissed as irrational. Their suffering is ignored. Their inner worlds are rendered invisible, making it easy to disregard their arguments, their rights, and eventually, their humanity. They're not presented as complex individuals with legitimate grievances, but as a faceless mob, a problem to be managed. In the digital age, this manipulation has become terrifyingly personal. Surveillance capitalism operates by harvesting the intimate details of our lives, not to understand us, but to reduce us to predictable patterns. To the algorithm, you're not a conscious being with hopes and fears. You're a bundle of data points, a target for an advertisement, a node in a network to be nudged in a desired direction. Your mind is a machine whose inputs and outputs can be calculated and controlled.
The result is a pervasive, corrosive cynicism that has become the mood of our time. We are drowning in a culture of suspicion. A political opponent is no longer someone with a different perspective. They're a paid shill, a brainwashed sheep, a bot. Conspiracy theories thrive in this environment because they provide a simple, seductive answer to a complex world. Nothing is as it seems, and almost no one is who they say they are. This is the weaponization of solipsism. It's a collective paranoia where we believe only our tribe is truly awake, while everyone else is either a puppet or a puppeteer. This is the crescendo of our unease. The philosophical problem has escaped the ivory tower and become the central crisis of our public square, sowing a distrust so profound it threatens to tear the fabric of society apart. We arrive then at the edge of the abyss and find no bridge. No philosophical proof, no scientific instrument can ever truly cross the final inch between your mind and another. The prison of the self is, by its very nature, escape-proof. We cannot solve the problem of other minds. We can only choose to live as if it has been solved. This is not a conclusion of logic, but an act of courage. It is a leap of faith taken every moment of every day. The philosopher Albert Camus argued that life is defined by this confrontation with the absurd, the clash between our human need for meaning and the silent, indifferent universe. To live authentically is to rebel against this absurdity, to create meaning where there is none. The most profound act of this rebellion is to choose to believe in each other. It is to look out at a world of 7 billion unprovable consciousnesses and decide to build a civilization on the foundation of trust. This is the shift from what the philosopher Martin Buber called an I-it relationship to an I-thou relationship. We can treat another person as an it, an object, a tool, a bundle of functions to be analyzed and used. Or we can encounter them as a thou, a whole, sacred, and mysterious being whose inner world is as vast and real as our own. This is not something you prove, it is something you enter into. It is the ethical command that arises, as Emmanuel Levinas suggested, when we are confronted with the simple, vulnerable face of the other. In that face we see not an object to be known, but a universe that calls out to us for recognition and responsibility. So we return to the silent mirror from our opening question. After this journey through doubt, psychology, and history, what does it show us? The reflection is the same, but we are not. We see now that the mirror's silence is not a void, but an invitation. It offers a choice to remain trapped in the certainty of one's own mind, or to take the beautiful, terrifying, and necessary leap of affirming a shared existence. Our humanity is not found in the certainty that we are not alone. It is found in the fragile, persistent, and defiant belief that behind every pair of eyes there lies an infinite world waiting to be met.